Days after Kaduna State Governor Nasir El-Rufai disclosed that some persons in the presidency were working against the victory of the presidential candidate of the All Progressives Congress, both the media and political space have been buzzing. Governor El-Rufai premised his position on the timing of the fuel scarcity and naira redesign that has brought untold hardship on Nigerians. He says the move is to make Nigerians angry and discourage them from voting for the APC. Before this revelation, some Nigerians had stated that the scarcity of fuel and naira notes were political moves targeted at destroying the chances of a particular presidential candidate at the polls. Reactions are pouring in, and even the wife of the president, Aisha Buhari, has joined the Tea Party. Sharing the video where Governor El-Rufai made these damning allegations, the wife of the president captioned it, quote, "Long live the Federal Republic of Nigeria." Many say her post validates the revelations made by the Kaduna State Governor. Well, joining us now is the Director, Center for International Advanced and Professional Studies and Development, Professor of Strategy and Development, and the Director at the Commonwealth Institute of Advanced and Professional Studies. That's it. Professor Anthony Kila, thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, I am certain that you have been following these developments. First, it began with the APC presidential candidate who spoke in Ogun, saying that some faith columnists were behind what Nigerians are witnessing now, talking about the fuel scarcity as well as the redesigned notes, the scarcity of the redesigned notes and all of it. And then the governor of Kaduna State joined in to say the same thing, alluding that there are some elements in the presidency who are behind what we are seeing happening with the scarcity of both the fuel and the redesigned notes. And he also said the timing wasn't right for the redesigning of the notes. And then we also saw the wife of the president, where she caught that clip of the statement of the Kaduna State Governor. And she wrote, like we pointed out, "Long live Nigeria." I wonder what interpretations you are seeing. What's the handwriting you're seeing, and what interpretations you give to this development?
Well, I mean, one word for it, I say chaos, you know, close to
chaos. How do you mean?
Close to confusion, because, you know, it shows you what the candidate of the APC, Bola Tinubu, said. In essence, is that some people are rowing against his progress. Instead of rowing for him to win, some people tend to be rowing behind, against his victory. Then Malam El-Rufai goes on to say there are people inside the, inside the presidency working against the candidate of the APC. So normally we're used to saying we should focus on the message, not the messenger.
Right.
But I think in this case we should focus on the messenger, because there are over 200 million people in Nigeria. If you want to make a list of 20 people who knows or should know what is going on in presidency, El-Rufai is one of them.
Right.
You know, because he's a governor, because he's a party leader, because he's close personally to the president, and, because he's quite instrumental in the formation of the APC and the whole process that we're going into. So one should assume that he speaks out of knowledge and authority. Now, ordinarily, one would think everybody in the one party will be working together in the same way. But I would not say, unfortunately, it's just dramatically, factually, it is not so. So it means everybody has their own sort of mole or contrarian in their family. The PDP has their own G5 to deal with. Here we have the people in the presidency to doing this as well. But it tells you one thing. I believe, as adults, people have a right to be one way or the other in a democratic setting. They have a right to have their opinion. But I also think that this idea of doing it behind in a conspiratorial way shows that they're not man enough to say, I'm not with you, or I disagree with this. And that tells you, and that is a flaw in leadership, because instead of being competitors, they're now being seen as traitors, if so they are. Because really, what an adult, and more so a leader that represents other people, that is what a leader does in democracy. A leader should damn the consequences and say, this is where I stand.
Right.
And to that extent, I noticed one thing as well, in even Governor El-Rufai's posture. This idea of insulating the president from everything. It's always people around him. They're always using his name.
You think the president shouldn't be insulated? Because he has come out to say that he knows the president, that he's a man of integrity, and so he is not part of this whole thing.
Look, this president has enjoyed 8 years of people insulating him for everything. There's always people around him. He's always in his name. Where is he himself? Does he not read the paper? Does he not know what is going on? If everybody... Look, President Buhari needs to stay where he stands. I believe.
No, when they went to Bauchi, he made a statement.
I think it's not enough. If everybody had campaigned
that statement is not enough?
No. If everybody had campaigned for Buhari the way Buhari is campaigning for other people, would he have won? I want to say it factually.
No, but as it is said, that he has some other official matters to deal with.
There were people who were governors when he was running. There were people who were senators. I was a teacher. People left their job to go and campaign for him openly, vigorously. I think it's an excuse, and I think he should be called out. If he does not agree, let him say, I'm not for it. If he's for it, let it go for it. There's no way. If everybody says, oh, all I want is fair election, and fair, we all want fair and credible election. Do I not want it?
We all do.
But when I have a candidate and I'm a politician, I go for it vigorously. Let us not look at Nigerian presidents as rig election. Let us look at Bill Clinton and Obama in other presidential system. They campaign for their candidate because they believe in it.
He has been in some of these campaigns.
I put it to you that he's not doing enough. Let him say vigorously the way people were saying vigorously for him. And if he's not, fair enough. Let him say I'm not there. But by the same token, you see, here's the problem. Other people have a burden. Actually, I'll tell you what. I believe Buhari is a burden to the campaign of APC.
How so?
I believe his administration has not done enough to make the people campaigning on the APC ticket be very proud of him. I think he has not done enough. He has not lit the world on fire. So as a result, this idea of saying, no, he's a good man, he's not done well, I think he should be called out. And I don't blame people for calling him out, because that is what they're carrying. What I blame, just the way I blame them today, what I blame is that the other politicians within and outside the APC, I think they should have called out Buhari earlier on for policies that are not so friendly for the state of the naira. Tinubu went the other day to say they met the naira at this stage and they're turning to this stage. I think he should have said it earlier. My argument is that whilst the naira was moving from 200 to 800, by the time we got to 350, 400, that is when everybody should have been shouting that things are wrong. It's a gamble. It's not even a gamble. It's a position you need to take. If you're a leader, you cannot play smart and wise and be diplomatic and be conspirational at all times. At some point, a leader needs to stand up and say, this is what I stand for, and face the consequence, whether I lose or win. If we all decide that we don't want to rock the boat, we're going to play it conspiratorially, you know, guess what? Sometimes wisdom kills the wise.
So you feel that there is a conspiracy as it stands, and that that conspiracy could kill the boat. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think if there is, yes, it might. But then it doesn't kill the boat. It just makes somebody loses. You know, let's put it this way. Look, come 25th, 26th, 27th, somebody's going to emerge if election stands. The world is not going to come to an end. What happens is that somebody will lose and he will lick his wound saying, my friends betrayed me. And somebody will win and say, my enemies worked for me. We have a situation in the country now where all of a sudden, I've never seen something like that in Nigerian history before. As Wike would say, I've never seen anything like that before. We have a situation where all of a sudden, the APC people who are in government are campaigning as if they're in opposition. The PDP who are in opposition are defending the president. I mean, it's just amazing. You're somebody, you're looking at it and you're thinking, where do we stand? We are defying politics. If politics was literature, we are giving it a chapter, a very rich chapter for the world to read.
Right.
But it's not normal. Maybe it will be interesting, but it's not normal. Normal thing is that if you're in a party, you support your candidate, not just tacitly, but vigorously. If you're against the candidate, you walk away or you say, no, I am not for this. And if the party has rules that they say they suspend you.
Now, that's the president. If you watch the video on screen just now, that's the president raising the hands of the APC presidential candidate. Yes. I think that should be Bauchi.
Yes.
And you say the president is not doing enough.
Yes.
What would you have expected him to do, or what do you expect him to do at a time like this? Also looking at the controversies that is stemming out of his party.
Well, he's part of the origin of the controversy stemming out of this party. Let's be clear, you know, he's part of the source. I think the president, if he believes in his candidate, I think we should state one thing. I suspect the president is, what do you call those people? Undecided voter. I think Buhari is undecided who is going to vote for Kila. Definitely,
how so?
He's not vigorously for the candidate of the APC. I'll tell you what I think he should do. If he was vigorously for his candidate, he should, even without going on the stump, he should make declaration to say, I endorse this candidate, this is why I endorse him, this is why I
He said that in Bauchi.
I'm telling you, he's not saying vigorously, he's not. Well, that's how other people said it for him when he was campaigning in 2015 or 2019.
Of course, he is a different person, so he might not be as vigorous as they are, but he has said it. What more do we want from him? Well,
he's not vigorous enough, as you say. It's not good for other people's fortune. It might be good, it might be legitimate, but this is lukewarm, this is aloofness, is not good for people's fortune, because Nigeria is a differential place. What's that thing they say? The body language. If everybody sees clearly the body language of the president is going one way, they are not doing all this thing.
This matter of body language has always been, right from when the president came in to power. Everybody had always spoke about the president's body language. So I think it shouldn't be a surprise.
So let's start talking about it on his way out. His body language is not clear. That's the thing. If it were clear, people would not be doing it. I keep saying this, and look, I believe that it is wrong to insulate a leader from responsibility and accountability. If everybody does not do it, I think some of us, those who have the clarity of mind and the courage of voice, should call it out in a simple way that is unambiguous. No need to beat around the bush about this thing. Because guess what? No matter what happens, tomorrow will come. The election will come and go. And we shall see ourselves again. So I believe those who can should say the truth, not beat around the bush.
But the Minister for Information, Lai Mohammed, came out to say that they are not officially aware of these elements. I wonder how you situate that in this conversation.
I am not
because he is also part of the presidency.
Of the president. I'm not officially aware of what is going on in Buhari's mind and Alhaji Lai Mohammed's mind either. Because there's no document. What does not officially aware mean? We're talking politics, not institution. Look, that language shouldn't be used to people like us. Maybe other people would go away with it. But unfortunately, if I am to comment on it, I will go beyond that. Luckily, we know each other, so it's okay.
No, you don't want to comment on that?
No, I'm going to comment. I think, what does officially aware? Does the government of the day have an official position on things? It's politics. They're still beating around the bush. I think the chairman of the APC, the chairman of the Presidential Candidate Council, leaders of the APC should call a meeting, go and meet the president and say, Mr. President, these are the things we expect from you. Are you going to do it or not as the candidate, as the leader of the party? And now that should be official. And they should let all party members. You see, the problem we have, I think, in our system is that we're going away from what a political party ought to be. A political party ought to be an association of equals in which we as partners share a vision, choose a leader, and hold that leader accountable. And I dare say, you see, moving forward, I hope for Nigeria's sake that the next president of Nigeria, whoever he is, should be somebody who can actually hold account. Not somebody we're going to isolate or defend or move towards in a deferential way. It should be somebody that has an agreement with us, a pact. To say, we the people, we party members, we leaders of our communities and our society, we've elected you, and this is what we expect from you. And if you're not doing it, we need to talk about it. You don't win the presidency and become unreachable, untouchable, and you become one vague image that we're describing your body language. What business have I got with your body language? I should be discussing your deeds, your act, and your pronunciations. That should be clear and unambiguous. The president is not a pope, he's not a god. He's somebody that was elected amongst all of us through primaries. He's not somebody that was begged. You know, we keep saying this thing. The elected officials are not begged. They put out their name. They fill forms. They make declarations. It's something very intentional to say, I want to do it. And when you go through the rigor, the least you can do is to be accountable and to play by the rules. And guess what? And to remember you did not get there alone. And those who got you there expect you to act in agreed ways once you're there. If you don't agree, and you see, here's the point, it's legitimate. If I think my candidate is not a good one, then I should say, I don't like this candidate, and I'm not going to support you. And if the party wants to expel me and suspend me, so be it, because I'm a man of principle. That is integrity. That is principle. Not this kind of vague principle or integrity that Governor El-Rufai was talking about. That is the kind of integrity that is not testable. Integrity and principle is known when you stand by it, when you have something to lose by standing by it. When you are at a junction and you say, look at me, this is my face, this is my name, this is what I stand for. And you damn the consequence. That is leadership. That is the stuff. That is character that we need to be looking at.
So the aspect of he, still talking El-Rufai now, coming out to say that some of these policies that we see that was presented as good before the president was being misled.
So two things there. You see, this idea of the president being misled, people think they're doing the president a favor, but they're not. I don't know how to say to the president of Nigeria, a man of his age, but I'm tempted to ask, is he daft?
Choice of what?
Choice of what? Exactly. But it's early morning, but I'm really holding myself. How can he be misled? Okay, is he confused? Well, how can you mislead him to see that, look, what have we done? If they're misleading the president on issues that will affect millions of lives, then we Nigerians should look at ourselves and say, who have we elected? Somebody that can be misled? What's the matter with us? We shouldn't say this kind of thing flippantly. It's a very grave thing to say the president of the country was misled. Is it that he didn't read, or he cannot read, or he would not read, or he would not take a moment to actually think it through by himself? And if he sees that it's wrong, will he not immediately say no?
There's a possibility of someone selling some idea to you that makes you make it seem like this is the right thing to do, and you just buy into it. There's a possibility.
Buy into it. Look, we're not talking about a trip to, well, Nigerians even go abroad. We're not talking about a trip to Abeokuta or Ibadan here. This is something that touches lives. This is a role for which you've sworn to give your very best. This is a position in which when you exercise your power, you seek advice, you consult. There are people paid to advise you. The idea that it's not a sole trade business. It's not one man deciding Nigeria. At least it ought not to be so.
Yes.
The presidency and presidential decisions are things that are pondered on, or should be pondered on by a team of qualified, dedicated people. So this idea, this pedestrian idea of saying that the president was misled, I want Nigerians to have an idea of how the presidency works or should work.
Right.
It is not a one-man business in which you just say, what should I do? Should I wear a blue shirt or a white shirt today? No, it doesn't work that way. The way it works or it ought to work is that every decision, people sit around and say, this is the right thing to do. Why? Because we should not trust the lives of millions of people, of policies that will affect millions of people, to one man, no matter how genius he is. Let us assume that President Buhari is the most intelligent Nigerian, proactive, dynamic, eloquent, and everything that you expect a leader to be. Let us assume so. Even so, you do not allow one person to decide those things by himself. There should be a team of experts that will weigh the scenario. They play scenarios, they play possibilities and say, if we do A, this is what is likely to happen. If we do B, this is what is likely to happen. So therefore, let us choose this. There's going to be theses, antitheses, and sentences before a decision is made. Because it's not a personal choice. Even in a personal choice, husband and wives, partners at home, ask themselves, should I put on this tie, or should I take this bag, or should I use this color? I mean, they don't have the deliberation of a presidency, but where husband and wife speak to each other at home, they ask themselves those questions. So if we can do that in our homes, imagine the whole country. So this idea of maybe the president was misled, we make it sound as if the presidency, the Nigerian government, is one thing where somebody takes one paper to one old man and looks at saying, okay, do that. You know, something like get whiskey if there's no brandy. That's not the way this thing is run. And we should not. And now, this is the teacher and me coming out. I say this thing for the benefit of young people, to know that this is not the way things ought to be. We should be teaching the young what ought to be, not what it is, not just what it is. We look at what it is and improve it so that we show them what it is. Because if we let this narrative of the president is misled goes on, a new generation will grow up not understanding that a leader is not somebody that decides everything by himself. That he must be responsible, he must consult, and he must be accountable as well.
Right. Now, we mentioned that because of the matter of the redesign notes,
Yes.
which has come under criticism, which
Yes.
is also one of the issues that was raised by both the governor of Kaduna State and even the candidate of the APC. Now, with regards to the redesign note, the president had come out to say that the CBN governor told him that it was going to address the matter of security, terms of ransom, the payment of ransom, and it also the aspect of checking vote buying and all of it, security and that. And now, when you look at what is going on, how Nigerians are groaning under this decision made by the CBN, this policy, would you say that perhaps the idea that he was perhaps misled, it wasn't thought through by the CBN, is what is playing out at the end of the day?
Well, there are 3 points to make about that. Number one, it tells you that when the president or any kind of leadership makes a decision that goes totally array and they stick by it, one is because they're not representative of the people. They don't understand what people are really going through. Because if they did, they will be able to see the consequence. But there's also a flaw. It also tells you that those representing the people, especially from the House of Reps, in which, technically every voice should be heard, are not making their voice heard.
No, they called the CBN president to come speak to them on this. Recall, the Minister of Finance initially said she wasn't aware of the redesign.
That is true, yes.
Note,
yes.
And then the president said he had the backing, or the CBN governor said the president is aware and he got the backing of the president. So to situate this matter, that not everyone was involved with regards to this matter.
Let me just say something which some people might find controversial here. If I was in the House of Rep when this thing happened, I would have tried to impeach the president on this matter.
Why?
Because a directive is going on in his name that does not represent the people. We would have said, we the people believe this thing is wrong, let's go by it. But that is a political thing. Let's go to the merit of the redesign and everything. The idea of the CBN governor is to use this policy to A, get people into the cashless society, B, reduce the amount of money in circulation, C, void, annul some money that has stuck away, which is believed to have been gathered illegally or illegitimately. In a way, it shows that he wants to sort of reset the flow of money in Nigeria. Now, where's the problem with this? It does not take cognizant of where Nigerians are. The road to hell, they say, is full of good intention. It does not take the fact that how many millions of people ride buses and will need cash for that transaction. The policy is something that affects outliers. It's something that affects people who are extremely rich with lots of cash stocked somewhere in their house, or people who are extremely poor that live by the day, hand to mouth, naira to naira. Part of the problem, the CBN governor and the policy have 2 major flaws. Number one is that before implementing this policy, they should have made sure that there are banks or similar institutions across the country. When I say across the country, they need to do something, for example, where you must make sure that every local government in Nigeria has at least 3 or 4 banking institutions or something similar where people can deposit money and withdraw money. Whether it's money agents, whether it's proper bank, whatever you want to. The CBN should have gone to do that. So in a way, they've jumped the gun. They haven't done that. They haven't made that infrastructure available. They should have used fintech, all sorts of new technology to make that available before making this policy. That's number one. Number two is that there's a contradiction here. Whilst on one hand, the CBN governor with this policy is trying to get people cashless, they're still charging people for it. So even if you could do it, even if you decide, let's all go cashless, there's still a problem that does not balance it out. Whilst the CBN governor was saying people can go to the bank and put their money, they should have also put on hold all charges for electronic transactions so that people will be endeared to do it. So that way, because part of the problem we have, and it shows you this disconnection between policymakers and citizens that they're meant to be serving. Part of the problem we have is that if you go to the market, like some of us has done, because it's our job to be economists, to see what is going on in the market, part of the problem we're having is that if you go to the market to buy something that's about 300 naira, technically you could use your card to do a transfer. The problem is that when you do that, you will be charged for it. So there is no incentive to do that. So I think a good policymaker should factor in this kind of thing. And this is where we're having the problem. Ideally, I do not understand this rush. Even if the CBN governor is giving us 100 days for this transaction, it is wrong for him not to have thought it through 300 days earlier, at least 200 days earlier, and played scenarios. Now, in the middle of these scenarios, and this is where politics has a problem, we do not know the mind of the APC presidential candidate. But it smacks as if he's coming out to say it is painful because it is designed against him.
That is how you interpret it.
As it is interpretable as that way. Some people have said so, and yes, there's reason to think so. It doesn't mean it's so, but it can be interpreted that way. You know what they say? Perception is more than reality in politics. They are the politicians, not me. It's their business. I deal with economics, facts, and figures. Now, and this is important for tomorrow people, which is my real constituency, people growing up tomorrow. It is important that before something touches you, when you're a political leader, you should raise the alarm and shout when it's touching other people, because that is why you're leading them. It should not be because when I'm running, I think this thing is designed against me, that's why I'm talking now. Even if it's not so, you should not leave space for that. So that from the onset, when we let people into power, we should keep holding them accountable. That's the whole point here. If a policy is shown, the rest of us in the society, either as thinkers, politicians, analysts, we should come forward with our comments on it to say, these things that you're planning, this ought to be so. And there's one other thing I would need to say as well. Look, this idea that in democracy, somebody will wake up, give a directive, and make a law is a very dangerous thing. That is one of the beauty of democracy. The CBN governor, because he has the power, just gave a directive. I think it's wrong. In a democracy, there should be no directive. In a democracy, everything should be proposed, discussed, agreed, then turns to law.
But he went to the president, and he felt he got the backing of the president, and that's why he went ahead with it. And we saw what we saw.
Very good. And I think it's people like you that's getting us in trouble. Because you keep defending this president thing. You keep putting it back at me. Yes.
I'm not. I am telling you what the scenario that played out, or that is playing out.
Thank you for your scenario. Thank you very much for it. You see, from your scenario, you see where we are. I argue that instead of playing the scenario out that you're bringing, if they had gone to debate where everybody...
Agreed. That is what everyone has said.
To say this is what is happening. Let everybody from their constituencies come and say, this is how this thing is affecting my constituency.
Which was what the members of the House of Reps tried to do.
Yes.
And even some members of in the Senate as well. Because there were those who said that we do not have banks in some of our constituencies because of the security situation. And so that should have been addressed in the first place.
So two things about those members of the House of Representatives themselves. All these days when there was no bank in their constituency, do they not feel the need to say, let me do something to bring bank to my constituency? They've been there 4 years. It doesn't take 4 years to get a bank, a micro bank, any kind of bank in their constituency. As part of the development index, banking facilities, they should have facilitated it, influenced it, and raised alarm for that. That is one thing that they haven't done. The other thing that they've not done, in the middle of them trying to do their best, is that if you are called out of the representative to represent, and you're not able to represent, do you not see that there's an ontological problem of essence in your being in office? Do you not see that if you're not allowed to do your job, you should go after the person stopping you from doing the job? That is why I started earlier on saying that if I was in the House, I'll have tried to impeach the president. Because if I'm elected to represent, and I cannot represent, I should know there's an issue bigger than the policy of the moment. I think our leaders should start thinking in terms of the bigger picture and essence of things, not just formality. If your constituencies that you represent, elected to charge, to paid for which you're called honorable, do not have banks, cannot transact, and you cannot call that policy into account, then can you not see that your purpose is defeated? Should you not take it very personal against the person? As you say, I think they should go after the president and come after you.
Me?
What?
For what?
You're saying the very understanding of the president.
No, I am saying it was what the CBN governor sold to him, that he bought into.
Well, they should go after all of them.
And then we also have the matter of the fuel scarcity, which was also spoken about. I mean, for over 3 months now, there's the matter of the fuel scarcity.
And again, they think that's a conspiracy.
Is this deliberate? Is this a conspiracy?
I don't know. We should call the Minister of Petroleum. Who is he? Who's the
Back to the president.
Ah, really? Ah, here we go. So we have an issue there. So I think, you know, at some point, if people leading us cannot lead, then they should be punished for it.
Punished?
That is my view. Yes. Well, the punishment is just for them to lose election, to lose their seat, and let those who can come forward. In the world we go on. This idea that we think that, you know, it's the end of the world, it's just a few people changing seats. It's not a big deal. Those who have other jobs will go back to it, and, you know, they'll discover God or anything or fate.
So this matter going on now within the APC, the party.
Yes.
How do you think that this could impact on their position come the February the 25th? How do you think? Because if matters are not resolved,
yes,
we are just seeing, you know, talks here and there. The governor, El-Rufai, said that these elements will be unmasked soon.
Yes.
So, and I'm wondering if they would do that leading up to the election or afterwards.
Oh, no. You see, that's the thing. El-Rufai, with the very clever man, made it clear that he has no hurry on unmasking there. Because what he said is that it is more important to win than to unmask them.
Yes.
So what they want to do is know where they are, win, then, quote-unquote, deal with them later. That's the plan. But that's a risk. That's a strategy. Well, it's a plan, not a strategy, actually.
It's a risk.
Yes, it's a risk because what if they don't allow them to win? What, then they will just unmask them for unmasking sake. It's a risk for them. But you see, this thing you call risk, I bet the people of PDP are very happy about all this thing going on. I bet the people who do not like APC are happy there's a problem there. But when you see, there's another scenario. And the scenario is that maybe those who are working, because again, just like Alhaji Lai Mohammed said, they are not aware. We're not aware. So right. I am too not officially aware of such conspiracy. So let us say if for any reason there's a true conspiracy, let us say so. Well, let's not use the word conspiracy. Let's say if for a reason there are people in the presidency that are not working for this candidate of the APC or actually working against it, perhaps they're not convinced about it. You see, that's the thing. We make unnecessarily secretive things that ought not to be. Perhaps they do not think that Ashwaji Bola Ahmed Tinubu will make a good president, and they want to stop him from being a president. It's very possible. Or
perhaps they still have a grouse with regards to the primaries, because I think El-Rufai mentioned primaries that their candidates did not emerge.
Yes.
So
yeah, but it's still the same. It might be so. But, bitter is a word that we shouldn't use in politics, because you see, in reality, let us assume that they had another candidate. If they had another candidate because they did not see him as their preferred candidate. So that means from the onset, he did not persuade them that he's the right person. And even after the primary, he has not persuaded them. But he went to meet all of them. Well, I go to meet a lot of people as well. That doesn't mean that just because you meet people... I get your buy-in. Doesn't mean you get buy-in. At times, going to meet people might even make the situation worse. Because perhaps when they had a closer look, they're not pleased with what they saw. So it's not, you know, this idea of saying we've gone around, we've spoken to people, no. It doesn't work that way. You don't know what people are thinking in their mind. You know what their interest is. Politicians are moved by interest, idea, influence, and perhaps position. And you need to be able to tick all those boxes for them. And, you know, if you don't, then there's going to be trouble. So I think, to your question, what is the likely outcome of this scenario? Impact on it. There are three possible impacts. One is that people working against will make their party lose and their candidate lose. And, you know, they will be happy that the candidate is out.
Okay.
Another impact is that they might reconcile, you know, get together and say, okay, we've seen what's going on. We know maybe they want something, and then they'll fall back. Another possibility is that they go for confrontation. Those for the candidate work with him against those who are against him, and then they win. They defeat the so-called traitors or people complotting. So those are the possible scenarios.
But do you see the possibilities of a reconciliation leading up to the election?
Oh, absolutely. There's always space. For politicians, you see, unlike the rest of us, normal citizens, for politicians, there's always space for reconciliation because they look at the real, the substance in front of them. And let's face it, unlike the rest of us who are more interested in just having good roads, no for scarcity, available naira, politicians want power. So sometimes they will take power even if they have to give up a lot of things. That is why it's easier for them to reconcile. It is not because they have one innate sense of peace or something inside them. It is because when they are moved to power, it is easy to settle, you know, on positions and influence, and that's the way, and which is legitimate. I say this not as a bad thing, because if you're in politics, you're going there for power. The difference between two politicians, I like to say, is not their quest for power. When they say, I'm not interested in the power, that's normally they're lying. It's what they do with the power. Do they do good, do they do evil, or do they sit on it and do nothing? So that's the difference, really.
Now, but if you take a closer look at the issues that were raised, talking about the redesigning of the notes,
yes,
and the timing of it, as well as the fuel scarcity, is it possible for someone or elements, as they have been called, to really use that as a strategy against someone?
Well, I think if that is true, it's a terrible thing. You know, to make the whole country suffer.
I mean, over 200 million Nigerians are suffering.
It's a terrible thing if that is so. And but again, you know, politicians. By the way, this thing's being said. It's being said by politicians about politicians.
Yeah.
I think we the people should look at politicians all together and say, wow, are these people capable of doing this or thinking this? I think that's a terrible thing. But one thing, and here we should tread carefully, because there is also a scenario to say this thing is done to punish politicians who have stacked away money so that they will not be able to use that money. And that's the problem.
But they are not bearing the brunt.
Then that's where I want to go. Citizens are bearing the brunt, not the politicians themselves. So, the other people are not bearing the brunt are some people who were spraying the money on social media. You see, this is the kind of generation that descends from the kind of chaos we're talking about, that do not have a sense of accountability, being sober, being conscious of the environment, and being able to empathize. People just want to show off. You know, I wish those people were for anything they're celebrating, but what is there to gain to show off that naira when others are struggling for it? How remote can they be from the rest of the world that they live in that bubble that way when the rest of, you know, it just shows you, and you see this thing, and because leaders are the ones that set the trends, we're talking of disconnection and lack of empathy here, which goes beyond partisan thing, because we're all engrossed in this partisan issue. But this idea of leaders not being connected, not being able to empathize with the people, I argue, is what leads to those kind of behavior. We're in the right at the center, right at a moment in time when people are struggling to have enough money to do basic things in life, not because they are poor, which they are, but because the currency is not available. Some people take the joy to show that I can spray it, I can throw it away. It might appear normal to us, but I argue it's not. It shows you something about our humanity, our inability to have a sense of purpose, a sense of discipline, and to empathize with others. To say, you are suffering, look at me, in your face, I can throw it away. What do they have to gain by that? You know, what is it going to bring to their life? But unfortunately, we also live in a place where people are known for being rich, not because they've created a job or invented anything. What's that word they use for them? Socialite or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, there's some people I know, and I try to think, what exactly is this man or woman famous for? What exactly have they contributed for which we recognize them? But I think politics has a big, huge role to play in this kind of things, because we have politicians who are powerful and famous, and we do not know what we have contributed. And I really want people to think. You see, for example, I go back to naira design. Yeah. One part of the story that people are not saying is that when politicians, rightly so, say that our constituents have no banks in rural areas, they have no access to it, I want somebody to ask them, for the 4 years you've been in power, for the 8 years you've been running for office, did it not occur to you that your constituents should have a bank? Whilst we're at it, maybe they should do a library as well. I argue that, you know, there's some things that every local government should have. It includes banks, library, health centers, and things like that. And that is the politics we need to force people to be talking about. Not body language, not misleading the president, not they're doing it against me, not conspiracy thing. Politicians always conspire. Honestly, I think they should sort out the conspiracy thing among themselves. Not bring us into that.
Now, you mentioned something earlier that I want you to quickly address, which has to do with accountability.
Yes.
Holding politicians, our leaders, to account. The system we run doesn't seem to give room for that. How do Nigerians begin to bring, you know, their leaders to account?
Well, I think we ought to know what the relationship should be. I think that's the starting point. If we turn this relationship to, you know, father and child, where the leader is our father and we are the children, as if we have no parents of our own, I think we need to move away from being a nation of orphans to a nation of citizens.
Right.
This idea of looking for father, that is where it starts from. Let people know that when they vote or when they support, it's a joint venture in which they're putting somebody in charge of managing their affairs on their behalf.
All right, and that's a fine place to leave the conversation this morning. Professor Anthony Kila, Professor of Strategy and Development and a Director at the Commonwealth Institute of Advanced and Professional Studies. Thank you for your time on the program.
Good to be here.